Our breaking news this morning is that the energy suppliers E.ON, Octopus and Good Energy have paid between them £8 million after delaying or failing to pay compensation payments to customers.
Energy regulator Ofgem said some people waiting over a year to receive the money owed if a supplier doesn't provide a final bill within 6 weeks of switching. It's going to be roughly £60 compensation per person. Ofgem's Director of Strategy, Neil Kenwood, joins us now. So this was 95,000 E.ON customers, 19,000 Octopus customers and 350 Good Energy customers who switched in 2020 or 2021. But they should have already had their money, you're saying, are you?
That's right. So the compensation has been paid, we think, to all those customers by the end of last year was the plan.
And would it have been by backs or by cheque? How would they have got the money?
So that may depend on the individual customer and the supplier, but they should have all had that money back from the supplier.
Because my concern about that is if somebody gets sent a £60 cheque and they don't know that they're due it, they may think it's a load of nonsense and then someone's trying to scam them and not cash it. And also their address may have moved on. So what are you doing to verify that the people who should get the payments will actually receive the payments?
So if someone's listening today and they think that they were not paid, they hadn't been paid their £60 compensation. So, for example, they didn't get their final bill within 6 weeks of switching.
In 2020, 2021. It's hard memory, isn't it?
That's right. But if they feel that hasn't happened, then they should contact their supplier at the time. So it could be any of the suppliers.
E.ON, Octopus, Good Energy, your four
E.ON,
supplier.
Octopus and Good Energy are the ones that seem to have had a problem with this in those years, 2020 and 2021. And they weren't paying the compensation that was due. So now customers, if they feel they're due that, should contact the supplier they had at the time.
I wonder if you could just explain to people what is the compensation and in what circumstances people are due compensation, because this is about switching your supplier, isn't it?
Yeah, and we want to make sure that the switching process is good for consumers, that it's accurate, that it's fast, and that they get their bills given to them at the right time. So we introduced 3 rules in May 2020 that if those rules were not met, the supplier had to automatically provide £30 compensation. And if they failed to provide that compensation within 10 working days, another £30 was due. And that's what's happened in this case for a large number of customers. We think they didn't get their final bill within 6 weeks and didn't even get that £30 compensation paid automatically. And therefore, they were due the £60. And that should have been paid by the end of 2022 last year.
Now, you talked about getting switching right. At the moment, there are no tariffs to switch to, either existing customer tariffs or new customer tariffs. I've been surprised. We had one that was on offer from OVO briefly. It wasn't the most competitive deal out there. Are you expecting to see switching offers come back in the market, perhaps in the latter half of this year?
We are, and we think that will be a welcome return to a sort of a competitive market. So we're hoping that there will be competitive deals out there for people who want to switch and take advantage of that. The market is, I wouldn't say we're getting back to normal prices, but we're getting to lower prices, and it's a more stable situation than it's been before.
I'm predicting a drop of 17.5% when the price cap comes out in July. Am I about right?
So we're not going to give figures on our price cap forecast.
Once for yes, twice for no.
We're going to give we publish the price cap number next week.
Thursday.
That's right. And that it's obviously sensitive until then. We haven't actually finalised the number. But I can be clear that the number will be down considerably on the 2,500 limit that applies at the moment for that average annual bill. So
the price cap will be dropping for the 3 months from July. I think it will be around somewhere between 15 to 20% drop on a typical bill. What is difficult here is if we do, and it's likely after that announcement we will see the first fixed tariffs, locked-in tariffs coming back. My concern about this is if someone put a fix out now at £2,300 for someone at typical use, you'd go onto a comparison site, it'd say you're saving £200. But we know it's likely the price cap's going to come down and move after that. So have you got regulations in place to protect customers from companies going fast and loose with saying there'll be a saving because they're comparing it to current prices, not the likely future prices on the price cap?
I think that's a really important point. And we're obviously welcoming the fact that we think these competitive deals will come back to the market. But you're absolutely right to flag that a fix now may look good now, but may not be good taken into account where prices may go in future. Of course, it's uncertain where prices may go in future. So we think we know what might happen in July, but beyond that, the prices could go up or down. So actually, we encourage customers to sort of listen to advice from people like yourself, Martin, so that they're taking all these factors into account.
Longer term, you know, we're currently on typical bills £2,500, and typical bills meaningless, but we'll use it to explain. We're expecting it to be around £2,050 from July. It used to be £800. Will we ever get back even to £1,000, £1,200? Do you think there is any chance of energy prices ever going down to somewhat closer to where they were?
So we certainly hope that as international energy markets calm down, I mean, it's all dependent on those situations like Ukraine, but we do hope that energy prices can continue to fall, but that's not guaranteed. And whether they'll ever get back to those low levels of previously, you know, they may not.
What would be the reason why they don't?
So I think some costs continue to rise through the system. Inflation drives up costs in energy the same way it drives up costs everywhere else. Consumers
think that the companies are profiteering in a crisis off the back of those who can't afford the bills. They wonder why, when the wholesale price goes down, the bills don't come down. They wonder why they're paying twice as much for their energy as they were a year ago, and why that isn't going to revert to what it was. What are your explanations as the energy regulator?
So I can completely understand, and obviously the energy costs have been extremely difficult for millions of households, and we understand that. Ofgem can't bring prices down. All we can do is make sure that consumers are not being exploited. And actually, if you look at the energy retail companies, so not Shell and BP, they're obviously making very high profits, but the actual business of supplying electricity and gas to people's homes, those companies collectively have been loss-making ever since the price cap was introduced. So, you know, on that level, consumers are not paying above the odds, if you like. And the price cap guarantees that customers are not being charged more than the fair cost of providing that energy.
But there are major criticisms of the system. We price energy based on the highest marginal rate of supply. All energy providers are paid based on the most expensive form of energy, not necessarily what they're being charged. You've put in a system that means if you do switch, the old company now has to be compensated, which diminishes switching. And Ofgem, frankly, there's a lot of criticism about your organisation over the last 2 or 3 years. You weren't prepared for this. Were you guys asleep at the wheel? I mean, are you not culpable for some of what's happened? The regulator there to protect us, you weren't quick enough, you didn't see it coming, you didn't protect people, companies went bust, the pricing system's wrong, and you've effectively put in a barrier to switching. I've done the nice questions to now, but you do have some to answer.
So, look, I think what is absolutely right is that this was an incredibly challenging period. We had unprecedented rise in energy prices. So they were up more than tenfold on historic norms. That's a sort of shock that's never hit our energy system in the past. So it was a shock that clearly destabilised the sector, not just in this country, but across the whole of Europe. Now, yes, some companies went bust, but Ofgem ran a number of processes to ensure that customers actually were transferred effectively and that they continued to receive supply, even as the industry went through pretty tumultuous times.
But you have the market stabilisation charge that people won't know effectively means that for the last year or so, if you choose to switch to a different supplier, your old supplier has to be compensated by the new supplier. That adds a real barrier. You said you wanted switching tariffs to come in, but you've put the biggest barrier in the market in place because the new company has to pay the old company as well as providing its customer with energy. Why did you put that charge in, that anti-competitive, anti-switching charge in, if you want switching to come back?
So in the same way that the price cap protects customers as prices rose, we need to make sure that customers, the energy companies who are locking themselves in, they're committing to buy energy for their customers in line with the price cap formula. And as that protection runs forward and prices fall, there's a risk that companies go bust, and actually that's not a good experience for the customer at all. So what we've established is a process where the company can get compensated for the money it's already committed to spend on behalf of its customers. Now, that charge, the market stabilisation charge, it only kicks in if it's needed, and actually it's dramatically falling. It's now well under £100 per switch. And as the market stabilises, the charge will disappear completely, and the market
it's the main reason we've not had any
will return.
competition for the last year and a half under these high prices is the market stabilisation charge that the Ofgem there to protect consumers put in place.
So it's part of the way we stabilise the market and make sure actually consumers continue to get a fair deal from their companies.
OK, Neil Kenwood, Ofgem's Director for Strategy and Decarbonisation. Thanks very much indeed.